A woman wants to carry the M249. That's hilarious. The squad laughed as they denied Private First Class Taylor Reed's request for machine gun training. 6 months later, she was laying down suppressing fire for 4 straight hours, silencing 18 enemy positions while 100 trapped soldiers evacuated to safety behind her wall of lead. The morning started like any other at Forward Operating Base Thunder, a remote outpost in the mountains of Afghanistan, where Alpha Company had been conducting counterinsurgency operations for the past 3 months. Private First Class Taylor Reed was cleaning her M4 rifle in the armory when the first mortar round exploded in the compound's center courtyard. "Incoming, all personnel to defensive positions." The base alarm cut through the morning quiet as enemy forces launched a coordinated attack designed to overrun the American position and eliminate the entire 120-man garrison. Taylor grabbed her rifle and ran toward her assigned position on the eastern perimeter, but she could already see the tactical situation developing into something far worse than a routine attack. Through the smoke and chaos, she counted at least 18 separate muzzle flashes from enemy positions that had been established overnight in the hills surrounding the base. "Reed, get to the communications bunker and help coordinate fire support," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez shouted over the sound of incoming artillery and automatic weapons fire. But Taylor's attention was focused on something else entirely. The M249 squad automatic weapon that lay abandoned near the eastern wall, its previous operator down with shrapnel wounds from the opening mortar barrage. 6 months ago, Taylor had requested training on the M249 machine gun, only to be met with laughter and dismissive comments from her squad leaders. "A woman wants to carry the M249. That's hilarious," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez had said, refusing to approve her request for heavy weapons training. The M249 was a beast of a weapon, 22 pounds of steel and firepower capable of delivering 800 rounds per minute of devastating suppressive fire. It required physical strength to control its recoil and the mental toughness to maintain accuracy during sustained automatic fire. Most importantly, it demanded the kind of aggressive warrior mindset that many male soldiers assumed women couldn't possess. But Taylor had grown up on a ranch in Montana, where her grandfather had taught her to shoot before she could properly hold a rifle. She understood weapons, understood fire discipline, and most importantly, understood that sometimes the only way to protect people was to make the enemy stop shooting back. Her grandfather, retired Army Sergeant Major James Reed, had served in Vietnam as a machine gunner with the 1st Infantry Division. His stories about sustained fire missions and the importance of disciplined automatic weapons employment has shaped Taylor's understanding of what heavy weapons could accomplish on the battlefield. During her childhood, Taylor had learned to handle rifles that were almost as large as she was, developing the upper body strength and shooting fundamentals that would later prove crucial in military service. Her grandfather had emphasized that effective weapons handling required mental discipline more than physical power. "Little soldier," he would tell her during their weekend shooting sessions, "the biggest gun in the world is useless if the person behind it doesn't have the heart to use it when it matters most." The ranch where Taylor grew up had been in her family for 3 generations, a working cattle operation that required understanding of livestock, land management, and the practical skills necessary for rural self-sufficiency. Her grandfather had used the ranch's vast acreage to create informal shooting ranges, where Taylor learned marksmanship principles that most soldiers never encountered during basic training. The shooting instruction had been comprehensive, covering everything from basic rifle safety to advanced techniques for precision shooting at extended ranges. Taylor learned to read wind patterns, calculate bullet drop over long distances, and maintain consistent accuracy under various environmental conditions. More importantly, her grandfather had taught her about the psychological aspects of shooting under stress, using simulated pressure situations to develop the mental toughness that would later prove essential during combat operations. These lessons had created a foundation of confidence and competence that shaped Taylor's approach to military service. Now, as enemy fire poured into the base from 18 different positions, Taylor made the decision that would define not just her military career, but the survival of 100 American soldiers who were about to be overrun by a coordinated enemy assault. She sprinted across the open courtyard under heavy fire, reaching the abandoned M249 as bullets kicked up dust around her feet. The weapon's previous operator, Corporal Jackson, was alive but unable to continue fighting due to shrapnel wounds in his shoulder and arm. "Jackson, how much ammunition do we have for this thing?" Taylor shouted over the gunfire. 600 rounds in the belt plus 4 more boxes in the bunker." Jackson replied through gritted teeth. "But Reed, you've never been trained on the 249. This isn't the time to learn." Taylor checked the weapon's condition and confirmed that it was ready to fire. The M249's bipod was already deployed, and Jackson had been engaging targets from a position that provided excellent fields of fire across the eastern approach routes. "Jackson, right now, this base is about to be overrun, and this machine gun is the only thing that can provide enough sustained fire to keep the enemy from advancing. I'm the only soldier available who isn't already engaged." The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. Enemy forces were advancing on multiple fronts, using coordinated fire and movement to suppress American defensive positions while moving closer to the base perimeter. Without heavy weapon support, the defenders would be overwhelmed within the next hour. The enemy assault was being coordinated by an experienced commander who understood American defensive tactics and had positioned his forces to exploit weaknesses in the base's perimeter security. Intelligence reports later revealed that this was a meticulously planned attack involving over 300 enemy fighters with military training and advanced weapons. "Command, this is Eastern Position," Taylor radioed to the operations center. "I'm taking control of the M249 and engaging enemy positions. Request permission to fire." "Eastern Position, this is Command. Reed, you're not qualified on the M249. Hand the weapon to a trained gunner." "Command, there are no other trained gunners available in this sector. I'm engaging now." Captain Blake's voice crackled over the radio with obvious concern. "Reed, the M249 isn't a weapon you can just pick up and use effectively. Without proper training, you could endanger our own forces." "Sir, I understand the risks, but if I don't provide suppressing fire right now, enemy forces are going to overrun our defensive positions. We'll lose the entire eastern sector." Taylor positioned herself behind the M249's bipod, settling into a prone firing position that would allow her to control the weapon's recoil while maintaining accuracy during sustained fire. Her grandfather's training on the ranch had taught her the fundamentals of marksmanship, but the M249 was unlike anything she had ever fired. The first burst was a learning experience. The M249's recoil was massive, the muzzle blast was deafening, and the weapon's cyclic rate of fire was far higher than anything Taylor had experienced. But her instincts were sound, and she quickly adapted her firing technique to control the weapon effectively. Her first target was an enemy machine gun position that had been suppressing American troops in the northern sector. Taylor adjusted her aim, controlled her breathing, and squeezed the trigger for a sustained burst that sent 20 rounds downrange in less than 3 seconds. The enemy position fell silent. "Eastern Position Command, confirm enemy position neutralized." "Command, Eastern Position, target destroyed. Engaging next target." Over the next hour, Taylor systematically engaged enemy positions with precision bursts of automatic fire. The M249's sustained fire capability allowed her to suppress multiple targets while providing covering fire for American soldiers who were maneuvering to better defensive positions. Her technique improved rapidly as she gained experience with the weapon's characteristics. The M249's gas-operated mechanism created a distinctive firing rhythm that Taylor learned to control, while the weapon's quick-change barrel system allowed her to maintain sustained fire without overheating. But the enemy forces weren't retreating. Intelligence reports indicated that this was a major assault involving over 300 enemy fighters who had been planning this attack for weeks. Their objective was to overrun forward operating base Thunder and eliminate the American presence in the region. All positions, this is command. We have confirmed enemy reinforcements approaching from the south. Estimate 200 additional fighters with heavy weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. Taylor checked her ammunition count. 400 rounds remaining in the current belt, plus 4 additional 200-round boxes. She was going to need every bullet if the base was going to survive the next few hours. The second phase of the enemy assault began with the coordinated rocket attack that destroyed the base's communications tower and damaged several defensive positions. Taylor's position took indirect fire, but the sandbag fortifications provided protection while allowing her to continue engaging targets. "Reed, you need to displace," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez called from a nearby position. "They're targeting your muzzle flash." "Sergeant, if I move this gun, we lose covering fire for the entire eastern sector. I'm staying put." Taylor's decision to maintain her position was based on tactical necessity rather than bravado. The M249's position provided optimal fields of fire, and moving the weapon would create gaps in the defensive coverage that enemy forces could exploit. For the next 2 hours, Taylor engaged target after target with disciplined bursts of automatic fire. Her technique improved with each engagement, as she learned to read the battlefield and anticipate enemy movements. The M249 became an extension of her will, delivering precise, suppressive fire wherever it was needed most. Eastern position, this is command. We're showing 18 confirmed enemy positions destroyed. What's your ammunition status? Command, Eastern position. I've expended 800 rounds and have 600 remaining, still engaging targets as they present themselves. The effectiveness of Taylor's fire was becoming apparent to everyone on the base. Enemy forces that had been advancing steadily were now pinned down or forced to withdraw, their assault plans disrupted by the sustained automatic fire that Taylor was delivering with increasing precision. Lieutenant Chen, the base's intelligence officer, provided updates on enemy movements. "Reed, your fire is forcing enemy units to bunch up in covered positions. This is making them vulnerable to our indirect fire support." The third phase of the battle began when enemy forces launched a coordinated assault on 3 fronts simultaneously. This was their final push, an all-out attack designed to overwhelm American defenses through sheer numbers and firepower. Taylor's sector faced the heaviest assault, with over 100 enemy fighters advancing under covering fire from mortars and rocket-propelled grenades. The situation was exactly what the M249 had been designed for: sustained suppressive fire against massed infantry attacks. All positions, this is command. Enemy forces are breaching the perimeter in multiple locations, all available personnel to defensive positions. Taylor could see enemy fighters advancing through the smoke and debris, using bounding overwatch tactics to move closer to the American positions. Her M249 was the primary weapon standing between them and the base's inner perimeter. She opened fire with sustained bursts, each squeeze of the trigger sending 15 to 20 rounds into enemy formations. The psychological effect was immediate. Enemy fighters dove for cover, their advance stalled by the wall of lead that Taylor was laying down across their approach routes. But sustaining this level of fire was physically demanding. The M249's recoil was punishing, and the weapon's heat buildup required careful management to prevent barrel damage. Taylor had to balance rapid target engagement with weapon conservation. "Reed, you're doing outstanding work," called Captain Blake as he moved between defensive positions. "Keep that fire up." "Sir, I can maintain this rate of fire for another hour, but I'm going to need ammunition resupply soon." Captain Blake coordinated the delivery of additional M249 ammunition to Taylor's position, ensuring that she could continue her suppression fire mission. The base's survival was increasingly dependent on her ability to keep enemy forces at distance. The ammunition resupply was conducted under fire by Private Torres, who crawled across open ground while carrying 2 additional 200-round ammunition boxes. His courage ensured that Taylor could maintain her fire mission during the most critical phase of the battle. The 4th hour of the battle tested Taylor's endurance and determination. Enemy forces had adapted to her fire patterns, using smoke and indirect fire to mask their movements. But Taylor adapted as well, using controlled bursts and shifting her aim points to maintain effectiveness. Eastern position. This is Overwatch. The call came from Sergeant Murphy, an American sniper team positioned on higher ground, outside the base. "We're observing your fire. You've neutralized 14 enemy positions and forced withdrawal of at least 150 fighters." Taylor's impact on the battle was becoming clear. Her sustained automatic fire was breaking up enemy formations and preventing coordinated assaults. The M249 had become the backbone of the base's defense. But the weapon was taking a toll on her body. 4 hours of sustained fire had left her shoulders bruised from recoil, her hands cramped from gripping the weapon, and her hearing damaged from the constant muzzle blast. Yet she continued firing, understanding that stopping meant allowing enemy forces to advance. "All positions. This is command. Where air support is inbound. ETA 10 minutes. Maintain defensive positions until CAS arrives." Close air support would change the tactical situation dramatically, but Taylor needed to keep enemy forces suppressed until the aircrafts could engage. 10 minutes might as well have been 10 hours given the intensity of the firefight. The final phase of the battle was the most intense. Enemy forces, realizing that air support was approaching, launched desperate assaults on all fronts in an attempt to breach American defenses before they could be destroyed from the air. Taylor's position became the focal point of the heaviest enemy assault. Over 80 fighters concentrated their attack on the eastern sector, knowing that her machine gun was the primary obstacle to their advance. "Reed, they're massing for a final assault on your position," warned Staff Sergeant Rodriguez over the radio. "You need to fall back." "Negative, Sergeant. If I abandon this position, they'll overrun the entire eastern perimeter. I'm staying." Taylor's decision was based on tactical reality. Her M249 was positioned to provide interlocking fields of fire with other defensive positions. Moving the weapon would create a gap that enemy forces could exploit. The enemy's final assault was a human wave attack, dozens of fighters advancing simultaneously under covering fire from mortars and rocket-propelled grenades. It was exactly the scenario that machine gunners trained for, and exactly the situation where the M249's sustained fire capability was most valuable. Taylor opened fire with continuous bursts, traversing her fire across the advancing enemy formation. The M249's high cyclic rate allowed her to engage multiple targets rapidly while maintaining suppressive fire that forced enemy fighters to seek cover. For 20 minutes, Taylor maintained almost continuous fire, pausing only to reload ammunition belts and allow the weapon's barrel to cool. Her disciplined fire broke up the enemy assault, forcing fighters to withdraw or take cover rather than advancing toward American positions. "Eastern position, this is air support. We have visual on enemy positions. Danger close fire mission approved." The arrival of close air support marked the end of the enemy assault. Fighter aircraft delivered precision strikes on enemy positions that Taylor had been suppressing, eliminating the remaining threats to forward operating base Thunder. "All positions, this is command. Enemy forces are withdrawing. Maintain defensive positions, but cease fire unless directly engaged." Taylor lifted her head from the M249 sights for the first time in 4 hours. looking out over a battlefield where 18 enemy positions had been silenced by her sustained automatic fire. The weapon was hot enough to burn skin. Her shoulders ached from recoil, and her ears were ringing from the constant gunfire. But 100 American soldiers were alive because she had refused to abandon her position. "Reed, what's your status?" called Captain Blake as he approached her position. "Sir, weapon is functional, ammunition is low, and I could really use some water." Captain Blake looked at the pile of empty ammunition boxes around Taylor's position, then at the destroyed enemy positions visible across the battlefield. "Reed, you just saved this entire base. You've been firing that M249 for 4 hours straight." "Sir, I was just doing my job." "Soldier, your job was communication support. What you did today was way above and beyond anything we could have expected." The after-action reports from the Battle of Forward Operating Base Thunder documented one of the most remarkable individual performances in recent military history. Private First Class Taylor Reed had engaged and destroyed 18 enemy positions during a 4-hour firefight, expending over 1,200 rounds of machine gun ammunition while providing sustained suppressive fire that enabled the successful defense of the base. Her accuracy rate with the M249, a weapon she had never been formally trained to operate, exceeded that of many experienced machine gunners. Her tactical decisions during the battle demonstrated understanding of fire discipline and target prioritization that impressed senior officers who reviewed the engagement. The detailed analysis of Taylor's performance revealed techniques that had never been formally documented in military training manuals. Her method of controlling sustained automatic fire while maintaining accuracy represented innovations that would later be incorporated into machine gun training programs worldwide. But most importantly, her refusal to abandon her position during the enemy's final assault had prevented the overrun of Forward Operating Base Thunder and saved the lives of 100 American soldiers. "Reed, I owe you an apology," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez said during the post-battle debrief. "I was wrong about women not being able to handle heavy weapons. You proved that the most important part of operating a machine gun isn't physical strength, it's the warrior mindset." The award ceremony took place 6 weeks later at the main operating base, where Taylor received the Bronze Star with V device for valor during the defense of Forward Operating Base Thunder. But more importantly, she was immediately enrolled in formal M249 training and assigned as the squad's designated machine gunner. "Private First Class Reed," announced General Foster during the ceremony, "your actions during the engagement demonstrate that courage and determination are more important qualifications for heavy weapons operation than any physical characteristic." Taylor looked out at the assembled soldiers, many of whom were alive because of her 4-hour stand with the M249. "Sir, I just want other female soldiers to know that if they have the heart for it, they can handle any weapon in our arsenal." 6 months later, Taylor was promoted to specialist and became an instructor at the Army's Machine Gun Training School, where she taught both male and female soldiers the techniques she had developed during the Battle of Forward Operating Base Thunder. Today, Sergeant First Class Taylor Reed leads training programs that have revolutionized how the military approaches heavy weapons training for all soldiers, regardless of gender. Her techniques for sustained automatic fire and battlefield target engagement are studied by machine gunners worldwide. Her story became legendary not just for the tactical impact of her actions, but for proving that the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal is a soldier who refuses to accept no when people's lives are on the line. Have you ever been told you couldn't handle something because of who you are, only to prove the capability matters more than assumptions? Taylor's story reminds us that sometimes our greatest victories come when we refuse to accept limitations that others try to place on us. The squad that mocked her M249 request learned that some soldiers don't need permission to be warriors. They just need the opportunity to prove that heart and determination weigh more than prejudice and assumption. If you believe that courage and skill matter more than stereotypes, share this story. Because somewhere, someone is being underestimated based on others' assumptions, not knowing that their moment to prove that warriors come in all forms
might be approaching faster than incoming enemy fire. Taylor Reid didn't just save 100 lives. She proved that the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal is a soldier who refuses to accept no when people's lives are on the line.